Hi, everybody, and welcome to our Friday live stream with the Great Game of Business. I'm Steve Baker, the Vice President of the Great Game, and I'm here with Rich Armstrong, the President of the Great Game, from his music studio, if I'm not mistaken. Is that right, Rich?
Not quite the music studio, but there's certainly a lot of stuff on the walls.
I love it. We're really excited to have you all today. We're keeping our promise of coming to you once a week to try to keep bringing you more and more information and useful tools and stories from the field. And I'm very excited about our guest, Kevin Walter, who's the one of the owners of Tasty Catering and certified Great Game coach. But before we get to Kevin's story, I thought it would be a good idea to address some of the responses that we got from last week's question. Rich, would you like to cover that?
Yeah, absolutely. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Each week, just as a reminder, each week we do realize that we're trying to provide this webinar each week to be able to to get you in front of some experts, some people that have been through a lot of this and can provide some answers to the community. But we also realize that the community is full of wisdom themselves. So we want to make sure every week that we're asking a question to the community, maybe they could feedback some of the advice to each other. So we do that with the question of the week. And last week's question was, who are some of the trusted advisors you've been using during this crisis? Who have you reached out to? And we got a lot of responses. We've kind of put this into some categories, but definitely by the one that really came to the top right now, which makes a lot of sense, is their banker. They've really used the banker as a way to really navigate some of the options that they have. We have a longtime practitioner, as well as a very close friend, Jeff Evenson, and he was one of the people that had responded. He talked about his banker and being that his banker was basically the most trusted advisor over his past decade for him. So he was already reaching out to them weeks ago to discuss the levers that was available to him and to understand what he could do to stretch out his cash cycle. So there was a lot of things that were mentioned in terms of just what you can do to reinstate that relationship with your banker and keep that relationship with your banker. The next one was, again, by far was the peer groups and your coaches, peer group chairs. That was really common, and I really feel like there's a lot of value there. There's a couple of reasons for that. One is that you get a trusted advisor in terms of a coach and somebody that you've always trusted for feedback, but also you get a whole group of peers that are dealing with the same issues and they can help each other. And that was another thing that Jeff pointed out, that he's been involved with the long-time peer group, and his colleagues were doing a lot of unique things to kind of pivot through this crisis, and he was learning a lot of options for himself. And as well, just his chair really supporting his colleagues and being bold leaders during this crisis, and really kind of helping them not just sit back, but to lean into this and really deal with the environment and with all the overwhelming business issues that is out there right now. Jeff also mentioned Jack Stack and other business minds out there and leaders out there that have been through. What's this, Steve?
I was pointing at you. Pretty much.
All right. Jack Stack and other business leaders that have been through this a lot is extremely helpful, especially people like Jack that tends to shoot it straight and can tap into some years of wisdom that has helped a lot of people kind of see around the corners. So that was the question. So hopefully that was helpful, and continue to provide your feedback, because this is very helpful to the community.
Yeah, so I like that. It's, people were thinking like Jack was thinking, go talk to the banks, talk to the people that you really trust, your coaches, consultants, your CPA, even people popped in with insurance and financial planners, their own CEOs. Obviously, they're great game teams. Somebody mentioned the media, which I thought was really interesting. it's another input. I'd be really careful what media you're listening to and go for credible sources. But one thing that I thought was really interesting that I wanted to mention, Rich, is that I didn't get the impression a whole lot of people were connecting with their Great Game of Business community friends like they might at the gathering or something like that. And I thought it was a good time to mention that the team, our Great Game team, has been working for over a year on creating this web kind of membership society. How you want to talk about that for a second? I think it's a huge opportunity.
Yes, it's something that we're very excited about, just around the corner in terms of a launch, but it does give you an opportunity to, if anybody has been to the gathering of the games, there is a certain environment there of support and peer-to-peer support, networking and that sort of thing, but then tons of resources, tons of opportunities to learn more how to best utilize and practice the Great Game of Business. What we're trying to do that is provide that as an online membership site that really allows the community to meet 24/7, 365 days a year in terms of this kind of support, which we think is just a tremendous value, especially considering what we have ahead of us in the next 3 to 6 months.
It'll sure make it easier for people to connect, not only to folks that they might have met at an event or through some sort of industry association or something like that, but also the people that are like-minded and like-spirited, like-hearted, that it'll be a great place to go, a community place that just, I think, will be really great for the whole bunch of us that are trying to navigate this stuff. So thanks for that. And thanks to everybody out there for sending your thoughts on this. We'll have another question at the end. In fact, we kind of have, we're learning to point this a little bit more in a finite direction. We want more of your input, so be sure to not just let other people answer for you. Get in here and give some of your ideas so that we can, again, capture the wisdom of the crowd. So one thing that I thought would also be interesting is we had Mike from Florida come through with a comment and a question. Would it be appropriate to go ahead and talk about that, Rich? Mike from Florida.
Yeah, sure.
So he says, after going through the 2008 recession, where we went from 50 employees to 8, this time having cash on hand and luckily being an essential business, we still have all of our employees on staff. I think that's awesome, Mike. We did go to them and had an average 8% pay cut. So we went to them and got that concession, but not one employee objected since they have access to our scoreboards and huddles each week. OBM is the only way to run a business. Now his question is, what would Jack Stack say about retro pay when this is all over? What do you think?
Well, it's interesting. Last week we had a guest, Liz Wilder, which she did that. If you guys remember that, her story is that they went through some very tough times in 2008, 2009, and then they were able to, after the recession, to eventually be able to provide their employees the back pay as well as a bonus going in. The thing, I actually had a chance to talk with Jack about this, and one of the things that his advice is really to not make any big promises right now. We really don't know what is ahead of us. We don't know what that new normal is going to be. We don't know how this will change your business model and what the new organization will look like. So it's to get ahead of ourselves and making any kind of promises is probably not something that we would do right now. Now, once you get through this and you understand where the new normal is and you understand where the company is headed and you've got your business back in a good financial position, I think it's up to you. And what I would see from experience of 2009 from many of our practitioners, there were several companies that did similar things to Liz and was able to do that for their people and to recognize the sacrifice they made. But that was all made after they got the financial stability back into the business and they could really make those kind of commitments and follow through with those commitments.
That's awesome. And that's another great story that people can go back and watch videos on our website or on our YouTube channel as well. Read the case study that's on the site about Anthony Wilder Design Build. And it's not the only story out there. Again, we want to hear those stories, so please share. We can only do better when we learn from one another. So speaking from one another in these really crazy times, before we bring Kevin out, I would like to share the photo of Alicia at CNH. Can I do that, Rich? Do you mind?
Yes.
That okay? So this is a photo that we got from Case New Holland Reman. It's our 50-50 joint venture with Case New Holland and SRC. And this is the picture of, it's a whole new way of social distancing while still celebrating the holiday. Can everybody see that? Looks like a pretty awesome way to make things work. Some sort of custom conduit to carry Easter eggs from one person to the next. Do you have any other insights about this, Rich?
No, she was just telling me about that this morning. I thought it was just awesome. Nothing's going to stop anybody in that facility of continuing on, right? And this is the way they were delivering their Easter eggs. I also learned this morning, by the way, in our 9 o'clock SRC meeting that the government did deem the Easter Bunny an essential employee. So everybody's okay with that.
Oh, that's great. Well, the coolest part about that is that you know, there's a dynamic going on that we hear about. I don't know if everybody listening has been dealing with it. You know, the companies that are not essential are freaking out because of cash flow. Companies that are essential are freaking out because morale can get all upside down, because why am I scared? Am I safe here? Is my health good? And CNH is one example of many where they're really working on morale, teamwork, camaraderie, you know, safety first, people first, make sure those jobs are intact, and then get the stuff out so the supply chain doesn't come to a grinding halt. Man, if you think toilet paper is a problem, wait till the supply chain dies, then we're really at a creek.
Yeah.
So, well, thanks for sharing. By the way, I don't know if you noticed, but the Easter Bunny was actually Rich's wife, Alicia Armstrong, who's over at CNH. So thanks for sharing that. And what a uplifting story. So next, I'd like to bring out Kevin. Again, I mentioned that he's one of the 3 owners. He and his 2 brothers, Larry and Tom, own Tasty Catering in Chicagoland. And here's Kevin now. Welcome, Kevin.
Good afternoon, all.
Kevin, you're signing in from sunny Phoenix, Arizona. Is that correct?
Yes, I wish I was still back at the business, but we sold our house and had to find a place to live for a month and a half. So why not Phoenix?
Timing is awesome.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be really easy for me to go on and on about how much we love Kevin and how much everybody, all the clients love Kevin. Can you tell us, for those who don't know you, tell us a little bit about Tasty Catering, about you, and about being a coach?
Yeah, I'm the youngest of 3 brothers, been involved in the food service industry in the Chicago area since the 70s. 1989, we started Tasty Catering as kind of an offshoot. By 2005, we were doing catering exclusively, no more restaurants. 2006-07, we underwent a culture change led by the employees. It's an employee-built and an employee-based culture. That led us to winning multitude of local, state, and national awards for best places to work, psychologically healthiest workplace, that kind of thing. It wasn't the 3 brothers. We were just smart enough to get the heck out of the way and let our people lead the charge. Nowadays, we're the 3 probably least essential people in the business, because between the culture and the great game of business, the business runs itself. Employees make their decisions based on fact-based knowledge and their assumptions, and it works out well.
That's great. That is great. And you're the youngest of the 3, as you said. What
I always point that out.
What's your role at Tasty Catering?
Not much. When they ask me for advice or ask me for help, I'm there. Fridays in the summertime, sometimes on Friday mornings, I'm the parking lot attendant, making sure everybody gets a spot, because we can't park on the street. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, when I first met you, it was really neat to see what you had been able to do without the game, and the game just kind of turbocharged everything, that operating system. Can you? So, what was your role before? I guess I was really wanting to ask.
I'm sorry. Purchasing and human resources.
Okay, gotcha. So that's always a tough one because people are your biggest asset and usually one of the biggest problems. So that really comes into focus now, right?
Well, yeah, and it's people, it's numbers, it's both, you know.
I've heard that. That's really good. So let's talk about this. I hate to, I'm all filled with happiness right now, but there's something real happening out there. I mean, COVID-19 is affecting everybody on the planet now. What impact has this pandemic had on your business? And I'm talking about Tasty Catering.
Short form, we've gotten clobbered. Long form, towards the end of February, we started picking up cancellations. First week of March was okay, on plan right about. And then it just was an onslaught of cancellations, one after another. Weddings, events, regular places we do training for every day, breakfast, lunch, just closed up shop. And our business dropped about to 95% by week 3. 95% drop what we should have been week 3 as compared to our plan for week 3. So because we had a decent start, we ended up March down about 45%. And then headed into April, we left our original plan number on the wall just so everybody would know, hey, this is where we were supposed to be. And we're forecasting here, and it's about 35%. And, if we get there, that'd be a miracle, and we'll celebrate the heck out of it.
Yeah. So everybody listening, it probably is on a scale of we're still essential, we're still working at X amount of pace, and there's people who were just shut down. Your governor shut down the state. You didn't have any input on what was going to happen in the marketplace. It was just shut down by an outside force, right?
Yeah, it was the weekend, Saturday, March 14th. There were people out celebrating in Chicago for St. Patrick's Day, which is big around here. And the governor saw those videos posted and said, all right, that's it. Sunday night, he declared all bars and restaurants closed as of midnight on Monday.
Wow.
So when we came into work on Monday morning, the fear in our people's eyes and hearts was palpable. You could just feel the fear because all the restaurant workers were losing their jobs and they wondered, well, are we essential? Are we not essential? Are we continuing? Is this my last day at work?
Yep. That word terrified really resonates with me and anyone else who's has gone through it themselves or has been wondering, will I have a job? Will I get a check? That sort of thing. Because a lot of folks are just not in a place where they have that, that war chest built up. That's just the reality of it. Now, you guys are men of action, people of action. When did you create your action plan? Tell us a little bit about when and what it is.
Well, on that Monday, I think it was the 16th, the leadership team at Tasty Catering, which doesn't include owners, we're by invite only. They actually invited us that day to get together and figure out what we're going to do. Back in 2008-9 recession, our team had developed a DEFCON plan 1, 2, and 3. If we get down 10% in business, 20%, 30%, what steps would be taken at each point to sustain the business? Oh, we went straight to DEFCON 3 or even 5 because we didn't have a 5. Yeah. And after we met with the leadership team, they came out of that with action steps. First and foremost was the 2 owners that are over 60, my brothers, were not allowed in the business. Anybody over 60 was sent home just because of the higher risk categories. They decided to cut pay for everybody, 10%. Hourly folks went down to 30 hours a week instead of 40. They cut the owners' salaries by 30%, which is what we did back in 2008, 2009. All non-essential spending, of course, was wiped off the board. Any service that we could perform ourselves, landscaping, we canceled the landscaping contract because we wanted to find hours for our people. Yeah. We were lucky enough that we had diversified. We've got a processing company that manufactures baked goods, and they actually picked up a little bit because they serve schools. So we were able to get our people hours there. We guaranteed our people 30 hours a week in some form or another doing something. What it was, we weren't sure. We've cleaned picnic grills. We've gotten ready for picnics. We've fixed equipment. We've painted. We've done anything we can do to get ready for when we come out of this so we don't have to spend a nickel of maintenance time or prep time, which will limit overtime later.
Yeah, and I know Rich has got some questions for you too. I just wanted to ask one more. When you talk about you kept hours in the shop, basically, you used people in different ways, and obviously they were very tuned into that. They understood what was at stake. could you just mention, you told me when we did the pre-interview about some of the fear that you took out of our organization, some of the illogical fear, the irrational stuff like toilet paper. Would you talk about that a little bit?
Oh yeah, we've always had a general store, what we call a general store, where people can buy restaurant grade merchandise at price plus sales tax. So as the supermarket shelves run out of things, food service places had a plethora of food service packaging. Anybody out there wants a case of 96 rolls of toilet paper, I can get it for you, because there's 12 different kinds available at our distributor. So we made that, and eggs had a run, and butter, and anything else that's made a run, we've sold it to our employees at cost plus the 2.25% sales tax.
That really helps clear the headspace, doesn't it?
I'm
not worried about the home front. I can now focus on the work at hand.
Yeah, we also that Monday implored everybody outside of the box thinking. The next day was St. Patrick's Day, which is big up here, and before even being prompted, one of our sales reps, people were canceling their St. Patrick's Day celebrations, corned beef and cabbage and boiled potatoes. And she started saying, we can do it individually. Let people have a taste of corned beef and cabbage even while this is going on. So before she even checked with culinary, she transformed 300 people's worth of cancellations into individually packaged St. Patrick's Day meals.
Mm-hmm.
Figure we'll just take the sale and we'll figure it out later. And they figured it out later.
Wow. I love it.
So innovation's never been higher. Immediately the leadership team discounted our boxed lunches, which are individually packaged, free delivery during March, anything we could to get any kind of revenue dollar in possible. It's been incredible, the turnaround.
That's awesome. Hey, Kevin, speaking of that, is that one of the things we're trying to do is to, of course, capture all these strategies, all these different ideas, all the different things practitioners are doing and share that forward. We reorganized our crisis site with the 4 Ps that Jack talked about, years ago during the 2008, 2009, around, people focus, positive cash flow, the repositioning for the upturn, right? And then just the everyday principles and practices of the great game of business. And I was curious that when you were going into this crisis, what were some of the everyday principles and practices of the great game of business that you used and to address the crisis?
Well, let me get to that in just a second, because that reminded me, the fear. I never followed up on the fear. By 6 o'clock that first Monday night, March, whatever it was, 16th, we had the action steps distributed to everybody throughout the company. So everybody knew what kind of runway we had. Peter spoke about runway a few weeks back. Our CFO told us in the meeting, we've got till 6/1, keeping everybody employed at 30 hours, and with the pay cuts and our expense cuts, we've got until at least 6/1 of cash. So we felt we were going to be out of this thing back then by June 1. So by Tuesday morning, there were smiles again. The fear was gone. Okay, I've got a job, albeit it's reduced hours. I've got a place to go to work. We're going to be safe. We're going to be all right. And that's when the innovation really started flowing. So that was the people. Positive cash flow, giving them that runway of 6/1. Since then, it's been extended a little bit. So it's getting further out each week we update it. Principles and practices of the game. That Wednesday, the first Wednesday, I sent out an email to all of the clients I've worked with, current and past, anybody associated with in business, and I forwarded them the first Jack Stack live webinar link and said, please watch this. It's imperative now more than ever. It's critical you do your huddles. Use that weekly communication rhythm to keep people up to date, to remove the fear from their hearts, to let them know what's going on. The more knowledge, the better, because then they don't make it up in their head and have that fear. And 10 minutes later, I got an email from our new CEO that our huddle was canceled. So I ran over to Tasty Catering and said, what do you mean we're canceling it? We don't want people to see negative numbers. I said, it's okay. So we talked through it. We did cancel the huddle that day. But we talked through it and said, let's put the numbers up there that they're supposed to be there, what our plan was for the year, and tell people the truth. We tell people the truth in good times. We've got to tell people the truth in not so good times. So we put the numbers up, and put in the forecast of where we thought we were actually going to be, and there was a stark disparity there. By that Saturday, our people our frontline troops came to their supervisors and said, "Hey, we want to extend that cash runway. So we're okay." We talked to everybody. If we get 20 hours a week, it's okay, because we'd rather have a job and we'd rather have Tasty Catering survive than get 30 hours now and not have a job later. And I'm telling you, well, when they said that, when I heard that, I broke down, because it was just so impactful that the people cared that much about the company that they were willing to sacrifice.
Amazing. That
Yeah.
really is. I mean, that's the whole point, right? I love the fact that look, there's people out there right now saying we are too busy or we are too frantic or whatever to have a huddle. And the transparency and the courage that it took for you guys as leaders to say, no, we're going to have it and we're going to talk about it. You just get those brutal facts out there, and together, by creating that safe space, you're recognized for it. You won awards for psychologically healthy. You created that healthy space, and when you took away the fear, you were able to get that innovation. It's amazing, and people are amazing, aren't they?
Unbelievable how the teams just rallied together. Unbelievable.
What would I made a note to myself. I wanted to ask you, what other ideas did the team come up with? Because they're way more innovative than we give people credit for, right? Frontline people are just far more creative than we often think.
Well, back in late February or the first week of March, our drivers all of a sudden had extra time. So they started scouting and being operatives, following other catering trucks around to find out who was still ordering catering, who wasn't canceling. And then that week that the governor shut down restaurants and bars, I think it was 8 major competitors in the market, probably the top 8 competitors, all closed their doors, laid off all their team, and turned their backs on any clients that still had a need. And we just, sure, that's going to, if you're going to look at us, we're about a $10 million company, 9.5 times. If we shut our doors, we would probably lose about $250,000 between now and June 1st.
Okay.
Keeping our doors open, it might cost us $500,000, and paying everybody, 30 hours a week.
Right.
But, there's a saying I heard in the last year that never rang more true than nowadays, is that culture doesn't mean anything until it costs you something. And, I'd be willing to bet on our people that extra $250,000 we lose, by being ready for when the business comes back, by being ready to snap up other caterers' clients, by being ready to immediately execute once we're allowed a new normal. I got a feeling we're going to make up that $250,000 pretty quickly.
In market share.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So let's talk about that strategically. I wouldn't even call it a spend, but that $250,000 or whatever it becomes is really an investment in the business, isn't it? That's the way Jack's looking at it too, here at SRC and our companies. How will you be more prepared or positioned for the upturn compared to your competition? In what way?
Our marketing team's just been working overtime on, we're open for business. It's in our signature lines in our emails. We are open here to serve you. We're open, and the messaging that they're doing is spectacular. Instagram, all the different outlets. I don't even know all of them, but it's letting everybody out there know we're open, we're safe. We're going to serve you safely. We're here if you need us. And if you've got people that are essential employees, why let them go out to their cars, go to a fast food place, pick up lunch, and come back? Why not bring it to the doorstep?
Yep. Okay. I love it.
So it's a better position coming out of this. We're going to be much more ready to respond once we're over this. How are the other people going to hire their people back if they even come back? How long is it going to take them to get up to full speed?
Just to ramp up, exactly.
We'll be ready to turn that spigot on overnight just as quickly as it shut off.
That's awesome. So have you had any, and I don't know if you want to, this is a public broadcast, so I don't know if you want to put it out there. Have you had anybody who has shut down operations? Or is there any good talent to pick from out there?
Oh, that Monday when one of the caterers did, we were looking for a director of operations. We were looking for an director of business operations. And that first day when the other caterer closed, their newly hired, he'd only been there 8 months, applied for our director of business operations spot. Now, we didn't hire him because, of course, we had a hiring freeze and we're cutting talent. And it didn't make sense. We said, hey, as soon as we're out of this, let's come on and talk.
Yeah, is what it is, right? Wow. Well, that's pretty cool. And I heard you mention earlier you have the truck drivers started following other trucks to see what businesses were still open. They're discovering essential businesses as they're driving around after a delivery. I think you talked about diversification too. You mentioned the school systems. A lot of kids in Chicagoland are on free and reduced lunches, like they are all over the country. And you guys figured out a way to work with that, right?
Yeah, we had them as a client with our processing company for their muffins and breakfast bars, and they continue to hand out meals, and it wasn't the kids picking, it was them putting together bags for them, so their demand went up. So
Wow.
they cleaned out our entire freezers, and we were running 2 shifts, so 10 people, 2 shifts for 7 days a week for 3 weeks now, 4 weeks, trying to
Yeah,
keep
when
up
their
with that
neighbors
demand.
are laid off, they're at working extra time. That's pretty amazing. Well, that's good. I mean, it shows the innovation that can come from that and being strategically set up now by staying open. And I imagine the trust level at Tasty Catering is really, really high.
Oh yeah, and another good thing is the sanitation practices have never been better. I mean, we always scored 95 to 100% on our health scores, but
Yeah,
now because that we tell everybody that's the one thing that could sink us is somebody getting sick and we all have to quarantine. So
yeah,
we've got new procedures for signing in, signing out, temperature scanning, uh, uh, glove use, all sorts of sanitary procedures have gone in place. That's only going to help us once this is over with.
yeah, absolutely.
Hey, Kevin, speaking of the measures you've had to take to keep everybody health and safe, safe and healthy, but we have a question on chat about challenges you have of maintaining the practices of huddling, especially if you have people at work that you want to huddle, but you got to keep your distance. Maybe the workers do not have, access to a smartphone or something if you want to try to do it remotely. Was there any strategies you took at Tasty Catering to kind of help with that?
For us, our entire sales and admin team has gone remote. They do theirs via Zoom. For anybody left at Tasty Catering, we post the numbers and post the plan number, and then each week's forecast we pre-populate so that we don't have to have everybody in there at once. And then leadership members, including myself, when I was still in Chicago, would be there ready to answer questions, and not only that, but better communicate what's going on this week. What are our current wins? Where are we headed? What do we got coming in? What are different teams working on? They don't see the sales team, so we're telling them what the sales team's working on and what wins they've had. We also established a win wall. There's a big whiteboard in that room that's just plain, and we use it for different mini games or targets or whatnot. We put up the win wall. And anytime we land a $4,300 box lunch order, we put it up there with the sales rep's name. We've also taken it down to a granular level where it's a $4,300 box lunch order, but divided by our labor percentage, divided by our average rate per hour equals 60 hours more for the team and back this week. That really helped bring a connection between the sales team being responsible for hours for the back and the back understanding the sales team is really trying hard to get us more hours.
I love that.
So instead of just a $4,300 sale, what does it mean to me? Wow, we got 60 more hours.
Yeah, that's great. It's interesting when you make those that you provide that kind of examples, Kevin, is you are kind of a unique guest for us because you're both, a business owner running your own great game of business practicing company, but at the same time, you're a certified coach for the great game of business. So you're working with thousands of other companies out there to helping them. I was just curious that if there has that coaching experience with other companies, how has that influenced the way you have led your own business?
I've seen a lot of different industries. I've seen a lot of different size companies, all sorts of different twists and turns in the business world. But it all comes down to one thing. Everyone's got a profit and loss statement or an income statement. And how do you game around that? Now, I've said this before to a lot of my clients. Tasty Catering is the toughest company I coach. They don't pay me for coaching, so there's less value assigned, and their practices aren't as good as some of my clients. Okay, we're transparent, right? But crisis hits, Kevin, we need help. Kevin, we need help. How about this mini game? Can you help us with mini game? Can you help this team? Can you help that team? So this crisis has kind of had them realize on their own, hey, we need to up our game. And hey, we've got a resource here. Why don't we use it? Okay, because I could be command and control, but we're not command and control. We're servant leaders. So I can't go in there a year ago and say, you've got to do this and this and this with your game, right? Now it's, hey, we need help. Hey, I'm here for you. So some really cool mini games have come out of it. It's new business, new lines of business, essential business hunting for our sales team. For the back room, it's our drivers now on the way back because there's no other caterer vans to follow. They just report on any parking lot that they've seen a bunch of cars in a business park or an office park. Where are the cars? Where are the people? So they come back with the name of the company, how many cars, where it's located, and our sales team attacks. So they're still in communication.
Yeah, you could bring in those no contact meals. That's awesome. Anything to get that revenue in, right?
Anything. Every nickel counts.
Well, that's
Hey,
good.
Kevin, our friends from Kielbasa say they totally agree with you, Kevin. They've been hiring their catering and restaurant customers to feed their production team, and this is an organization that's had this big boom in sales, right? The stores want all the sausage they can get from this company, but it's also supported the customers who have been so loyal to them over the years, like you mentioned, but also feeding 268 team members to keep them from having to go out and search for food and work. So they're definitely using those strategies as well.
Boy, we'll come down and deliver, but that's a heck of a delivery fee down there to Kielbasa.
Well, no, it's free in March. That's what I heard you say.
Oops.
So it's time for us to shift over and take a few minutes to take community questions. Rich, I think we got a couple in the chat box now, and folks keep sending them in.
One that I just wanted to mention earlier, which I just think is a good suggestion for us in our community, is that I mentioned the membership site was in the process of being launched. They said, hey, just in the meantime, should we create a Slack channel with the entire Great Game community and just get it going, get the conversations going. So thanks for that advice, because that may be something we should be looking into really quickly here.
Yeah, for sure. I've got one down. It's sort of related to what you guys talked about earlier. I see what are some strategies for huddling? I'm sorry, that you did get that one. What changes are going to stick after this? Will Tasty Catering pivot in a way that you haven't in the past? Beyond catering, what effects of this pandemic do you think will stick in the business world?
Absolutely. If we were a little more diversified, everybody would still be working 40 hours, right? If that processing company, Tasty Catering is right around 10 million-ish, and they're around 2 million. If that was 4 or 5 million, then nobody would have lost an hour. So now what essential businesses are there that we can make sure we keep as clients for the long haul? God forbid anything like this happen again, or what's the next black swan that's going to dive in on us?
Yeah.
So diversification to me is first and foremost.
Yep.
Well, you mentioned it earlier, Kevin, is that sometimes crisis reminds us of where we could up our game. And one of the practices we talk about all the time within our high involvement planning process is this growth and contingency planning process. And a lot of people look at it and say, how can I use this really in my everyday planning? If we have a contingency, why aren't we executing it now? There's always the reasons maybe not to do it, but wouldn't it have been interesting if people were focusing on that the last 3 to 5 years of all this out of the box thinking that they could be doing in terms of pivoting their organization? Already had that down, thought through a bit. I know you can't execute on it all, but have some of those ideas in the hip pocket if something like this hits. And I think that's just something to remember. Yeah,
something in there is we did individual meals for vegan, or, if there was a 20-person drop off for training and one person we could do an individually packaged meal for them. But we hated doing individual meals. They're bulky. It's harder to keep warm. A million reasons why. Well, thank goodness we had experience in that. We were able to immediately pivot to now every hot meal that leaves our kitchen is individually packaged. So that's something that we're going to hang on to going forward in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah.
You know, that who knows if we come out of this, the days of the open buffet lines are over with everybody touching the same tongs. What's the new normal? You know, is individual meals the new normal? Who knows?
Apparently not unlimited crab legs.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I thought about that driving by one of the buffet places here in Springfield. And Springfield is just one of these odd markets where the restaurants are always full, and it's just like a ghost town. It's very eerie to see these places, but you know, buffets, the ones I've seen, I think they just shut down. I don't think they had the wherewithal, and their people didn't think of what else can we do. It was, well, nobody's coming in, so we're done. And I think the spirit of we can do this is something that I've noticed at Tasty for years. And you know, you guys just never give up, which is awesome.
That's intrinsic with the great game. Our people don't want to lose. They don't want to lose. They just want to win. How are we going to beat the market? How are we going to beat the competition? You know, right now we know there's probably no bonus for the year. And if we break even for the year, hey, okay, that's a win. But how are we going to be better? Are we better than the rest? Are we going to beat our competition? Are a couple of them going to go out of business and we're going to get market share, which will make us better in 2021? That long-term play is in the hearts and minds of the people that play the great game. It's not all about today's paycheck. It's about the long-term effect.
Yeah, that's
great point.
like business. Yeah.
Kevin, you mentioned bonuses, and this has been a question that's come up pretty frequently through all of this. Is obviously some of those targets and goals we've set for ourselves this year are not going to happen. Things have changed. New targets need to be made, and that puts people in a situation where they don't feel like they have any opportunity for the upside of bonuses. And we had a question, actually a question that came up, is it said, you know, how does a company handle this kind of economic downturn in that regards when, you know, this whole situation is causing us not an opportunity to hit, you know, our goals that we said might not be possible anymore. How do we keep workers engaged in the program and motivated when they know that they won't be able to achieve a bonus? Do you have any comments on that?
To me, it's simple. They're able to achieve job security. They've got a job. I'm sure everybody that's on this call knows somebody that lost their job.
Yeah.
We're a step ahead. That's a bonus to me in today's times. You know, this summer, you got a job this spring and summer, you're ahead of the curve.
Yeah.
So if people are at work for the bonus, is that somebody that you really is engaged and enthused in the company, or are they just doing it to make the dollar?
Or from a leadership standpoint, are we leading in a way that helps? Are we giving them enough education to understand that bonuses don't come from a magic tree, right? You know, we can't pay one we haven't earned. So that's a question. Are they the right people, and are they in the right place? Meaning personally, right?
Yeah, I think it's also a mindset that I think the practices of the game help with employees to give them that mindset that this is not an entitlement. You know, and most organizations, or I wouldn't say most, but there are many organizations out there that provide profit sharing or bonus plans, but they don't tie it back to the financial performance as tightly as we try to do. So people understand when the business is successful, that's when bonuses happen. And when businesses are not successful, those bonuses are probably not going to be there, but your job security is, your benefits there, those kind of things will be there. And it eliminates that entitlement a bit, I think.
Yeah.
Hey, I saw a question in chat I'd like to address because I'm still figuring it out. Somebody had asked, how do you practice servant leadership from afar? This is day 3, so I'm still figuring it out. But it's texting, it's calling, it's Zooming, it's seeing the company-wide emails and commenting on them. I've approved 2 mini games in the last, not approved, I've reviewed 2 mini games and gave best practice suggestions to the team in the last 24 hours. So any way I can stay present from, I don't know, 1,700 miles away, I'm trying it. So if you got any tips for me, whoever asked that question, pass them along, but I'm trying.
That's awesome.
And just keeping the relationship, right, going. I mean, all the remote work is challenging. I know it's challenging for us at Great Game, and at the risk that Jack may be on here, we're actually at 4 o'clock today, since it's our holiday tomorrow with Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, we're having our Great Game happy hour. So we're going to be cracking open some beer on Teams at 4 o'clock. But the whole idea is just, hey, let's have some non-work discussions about each other, things that happen kind of naturally when you're together, but is very hard to do when you're remote.
For sure, for sure. So there's a couple more things that I'd like to cover before we run out of time. And one of them is a question here in the chat. Revenue's down significantly. We're concerned about our cash runway. We furloughed a portion of the staff to conserve cash. Once PPP funds, we are concerned about bringing, I'm not sure if I read that right, but we're concerned about bringing everyone back versus operating with a leaner team. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Us, the Tasty Catering is nothing without our people. They always come first, because then they don't need us. You know, we're just smart. We're just old enough and have good enough credit. We sign mortgages and loans and whatever we need. They run the company. So for us, we'd do anything to keep our people employed. That's our number one goal. It's our number one responsibility. It's our moral, ethical thing to do. So for us, PPP or no PPP, they're going to be employed. PPP comes in, maybe everybody can go back to 40 hours as soon as we know for sure. Right? Who knows if we can even go back a little bit, back pay them a little bit. You know, whatever it takes to keep them whole. I understand some companies aren't in that position. We had a pretty decent cash buildup from the last recession that taught us we better keep some more cash. So some have to furlough, I get it. But it's a tough call. For us, it's always people first.
No, I think that's something that we admire about you. It's very, very much kind of Jack's mindset. And speaking of Jack Stack, I think there's a little love letter in the chat box.
Oh.
It says, Kevin, you reminded me of a story of an angel who said, if we fail this time, it will be a failure of imagination. And then she placed the world gently in the palms of our hands. Thank you for having such strong hands, Jack.
Thanks, Jack. Thanks, Jack. Appreciate it.
Yeah, good stuff.
That's
well,
awesome.
As I said before, it's always an honor to have you as part of the team, the Great Game team. We want to cover a couple of other things. We'd like you to stick around if you can, stay on the couch, so to speak. Kevin, Walter, thank you. Tell the brothers hi for us, and tell everybody. I want to hear some whoop whoops later. Celebrate all those wins. That's pretty awesome. Listen, Rich and I are committed to broadcasting every week. You know, we made that promise to you when we started with Jack a few weeks ago, and it's just crazy, unprecedented times. So we're hosting the live stream to help you, the community, both from our perspective, Great Game, and also from the wisdom of the crowd, the community itself. So next week's question, we're kind of changing it up a little bit. We're saying, what are some of the out-of-the-box ideas you've got related to this crisis? And how do you put these ideas into action? And we suddenly realize that's mini games. So just think about that. What are some of the out-of-the-box ideas? How are you getting them? How are you putting them into action? What we'd like to do is we're really going to focus next week on that issue for the entire hour. Not only will we have a Great Game mini game expert on hand, we're going to bring Michelle Bridges in, but also a practitioner just like you to talk us through the ideas on what we can all be doing right now and how to do it to make our businesses and our people stronger. So I think this hour is going to be perfect to bring your design team to, your culture committees to, your frontline people, get as many people as you can. As a community, we ought to have 1,000 people on this call just to walk through what can we do today to make the business and our people stronger. So let's do it. Let's get 1,000. What do you think, Rich?
Let's do it. Let's do it.
Do it.
Out there.
Kevin, I want every Tasty Catering associate to be on that call. You guys have some great mini game ideas.
Really dig into that question of those out of the box ideas and bring them to that session, because then we can take those ideas and with these experts and the community, we can figure out some really good mini games that you can use to execute on those ideas. And again, I'm just reiterating what you said a bit, Steve, is just this has been one of the number one questions we've had, or one of the top questions we've had from the community, is how do we continue to use these idea of mini games? And I think people have a perception that the mini games are good to promote good times. And I think they're originally designed to really just solve problems. And so this is a huge problem. And so if we could break that down into some small things that the organization can really put their focus around and tie things like mini games around, it can be very powerful. So next week's session is entirely focused on just doing that.
Yeah, I think it's going to be amazing. And it is one of those things where you can involve everybody, you know, right away. It's not something that they have to be heavily trained on. We'll always be there to help with that, of course. Yep. I just got a text. We have a few minutes left if you guys are up for it. So next week, guys, we'll of course post this question as well as start to give you more information about next week's live stream. Are you guys up for a few more questions? I got a text from Cassie saying we got some more stuff coming in. So we talked about bonuses. Let's see, out of the box ideas. Can you talk about the workshop on Monday? Well, actually, we don't have anything on Monday. We have a workshop on Tuesday. By popular demand, we're calling it the Survive and Thrive workshop. It's basically the 10 steps of implementation right out of Get in the Game, our new book, which I happen to have plenty of copies of. And it's also available by through Audible and Kindle for remote delivery, completely virus-free. And Jack's book is also available in that same format. So Tuesday, what we're going to do is we're going to do an all-day workshop. It is going to be something crazy. You know, we'll be giving frequent breaks, that sort of thing, but we will literally walk through the 10 steps and talk about how you can apply that thinking, each of the 10 steps approach to the current crisis. It will be coming to you live from the Bat Cave, so you better be ready to watch Steve Baker a lot because it's going to be 8.5 hours of awesomeness. So I hope you can join us Tuesday. That's the 14th of April. And you can sign up on our site at greatgame.com. Another one that came up, we're forecasting a $50,000 to $100,000 loss this year with COVID, but kept all jobs, froze any raises. We should be getting over $600,000 from PPP. Any suggestions on how to approach showing this money in the P&L and for any gain share plan? And I'm going to throw that to both of you if that's okay.
Well,
for me, and wrong or right, my gut is telling me that stays on the balance sheet in some way or another until it comes over or until you actually get the money, right? Something just has told me keep it on the balance sheet so you're not messing with your game board for the short term until it becomes a reality. Because what if it's forgiven and what if it's not? You know, there's no guarantee it's going to be forgiven. Once it's forgiven, then it can move over to the P&L. And once again, I'm not an accountant, I'm just a coach.
Just a coach.
Well, I think the key point, Kevin, I totally agree with you, Kevin. And I think the key point is we got to make it, you know, with scoreboards with Great Game of Business, it's not about following the accounting rules as much as just making sure people know where the money's at and how we're going to be using it. So I think that's really good advice, especially with the consideration you talked about. Is it going to be forgiven or not? It can be talked about. I'd certainly talk about it and using an opportunity that this is how we're kind of balancing out the financial condition of our business and working through this. But scoreboarding it, yeah, especially bonus plans or gain share program, probably not put that in there at this point in time.
Thanks, guys. That's actually really helpful for everyone listening and watching right now. I will tell you there's another one here I'd like to get to. I think we have time for it. I remember talking with Jack in the last course we took in Springfield about companies planning for building a treasure chest. I think he's referring to the war chest because he says safety net in the event of a black swan event. How critical has this thinking been in stabilizing the company and the people in this current event?
I'm glad that question came up. To whoever did it, thanks. I'll give you my yay. For us, having that cash cushion and access to credit now is really going to come into play. Out of those 8 caterers who went out of business, we know that 2 of them were kind of on shaky financial ground anyhow. They may not come back. They may not open their doors. So we're trying to leave as much cash as we can available for buyouts, right? To buy our competitors, to buy some more, snap up that market share. We learned that in the last recession, but back then we didn't have any capital set aside. and we borrowed off several life insurance policies and whatnot to buy some other caterers and buy business. This time we're a little more prepared. You know, it's going to be a whole new world out there.
Yeah, for sure. Rich, what would you say in response to that question from an SRC perspective?
I think again, it's become a very valuable position to be in, right? You know, being able to go into a black swan event, which, if you really think about it, Jack has been talking about, you know, not only the recession and the whole reason for the last 10 years, the building up that war chest was first and foremost, if we hit a recession, we were able to work through that recession and maybe need to use some of that money or a black swan like we have. We're certainly in that position right now to keep people safe and healthy and keep them employed. Some of that, you know, war chest is definitely going to be used for that. But also being in a position, as what Kevin said, to use an opportunity to gain market share, to look for opportunities to purchase businesses, those types of things. It's kind of a little bit clairvoyant in that, you know, looking at, if you remember Jack's laying out the economic realities, and he would talk about being, you know, some years being slow or up or down and that sort of thing. The interesting thing is that in 2020, the only word he used was, "Oh no."
Yep, I remember that vividly.
He predicted this.
I don't know what that's about, but it wasn't up or down. It was just, "Oh no."
Oh no. Yep, remember it vividly. Holy cow. Well, guys, it's been such a pleasure. Always, it just goes so fast. So many great questions from the community. Thank you, guys. Keep that up. Every week we get more and more. Again, next week, make sure that you throw a lot of thinking into what are the big out-of-the-box ideas you've got related to the crisis. How are you putting them into action? Bring all of your teams so you can sit in together and really make the most of next week's show. It'll be 11 Central on Friday. And I also would like to remind you about the Survive and Thrive workshop. It'll be live, virtual, on a Zoom platform like this. Only $295. It's a full day workshop. Tuesday, the 14th. You can find that at greatgame.com/thrive. greatgame.com/thrive. On behalf of everybody, the whole team at Great Game, all spread out over God's green earth, and of course, Kevin Walter, our good buddy from Tasty Catering, and one of our very top coaches for sure, and he's a good buddy. And then Rich Armstrong, who's just awesome. So guys, thank you so much. Have a great weekend. Enjoy the holiday. God bless.
Thank you, guys.
Don't forget to celebrate any win you got. Any win, celebrate it.
Yay.
Thanks, Kev.
Take care. Thanks, Kevin.